Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek, brought to you by LMNT. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. There we go. We can hear me now. Sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Hey, now we can hear you.
Yay.
A few reminders before we get to today's interview is that we have a live podcast upcoming. This is going to be going down on December 7th. Actually, I'll let you give the intro to this, address this out the gate, but Zach's feeling a bit under the weather, so... operating at half mast right now. But we got Chaunce here, who's always the firecracker that we need.
Hi, I'm Chaunce. December 7th, it's a Saturday. It's also Pearl Harbor Day and my brother's birthday. But most importantly, maybe not most importantly, I don't need anyone coming at me about Pearl Harbor, but we're doing a live podcast. And it's at the Skylark, which is on Broadway in Denver. We did our last... live podcast with Dirtmonger there, so we have tested the space. We know it's great, the times are good, and we will be doing it with our annual hiker meetup that will be right after it. So if you want to come have a bunch of fun, we are doing it with Kyle Hates Hiking, aka Kyle O'Grady. He is going to be unveiling a brand new trail mystery story for us, so you'll hear it for the first time at this podcast, and then you can stay and hang out and mingle with us all afterwards. It'll be very festive and fun. I think I'm pushing for ugly sweaters, I believe we decided. And when we were in Buffalo at the Bills game, I got a Bills Christmas sweater. So yes. I already got my outfit picked out.
Yeah, I got to see you in shop mode. That was fun.
No, you didn't see me in shop mode. You saw me in efficiency mode because I knew we had limited time. And it was a really big store. Yeah. So I had to be efficient, which was I took a photo of everything I liked as I saw things, and then I showed it to Elise, and she helped me narrow down what I actually wanted. There you go. And then I went back and retrieved. It was like one of those grocery store shows where you push the cart. Sweep. Yeah, that was me. Very
selective with what went into your cart.
I think I did really good, though.
Yeah. Didn't you go to another Bill store the following day?
No, I just wanted to get back to trail. Yeah. I was surprisingly not hungover, and... I wanted to get back to trail before like a hangover might have hit. And it was good we did because there was a accident that closed part of the highway, so it took like 6.5 hours to get back to Northville.
Yeah, it was very difficult for me to not get anything because I'm a Bears fan, but it's hard to not love the Bills, especially after being a part of that tailgate. Yeah. We did the shopping before the tailgate, but I was anticipating it being awesome. Definitely a team that I like. But once they win a couple Super Bowls, all that goodwill is gone.
Everyone's going to hate us.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah. As a Cubs fan, all of our baseball goodwill evaporated after we won the 2016 World Series. So get ready for that.
And I think the Bears are endearing, and that's, because I was happy when you guys won yesterday. Yeah,
we haven't won a Super Bowl in your lifetime, and almost not in mine either.
But you know what? Same. Yeah. Neither have the Bills.
Yeah, fair.
So look at us.
Live podcast will be awesome. And if you are of the mindset that a Backpacker Radio live podcast is more important than Pearl Harbor, you should definitely come to the podcast.
We also have an Eventbrite where you can get tickets, right?
We not an Eventbrite, but a different website. The link for that is in the show notes. Definitely encourage you if you want to go to this to get your tickets soon, as there is a limited supply.
And they're cheaper online than at the door?
That's correct. There's like a $4 fee, so it's $25 in air quotes. I think it's like $29 and change once you get it through the website, but there's no hidden fees. That's the price that you see is the price that you get. And yeah, it'll be more expensive at the door, so definitely get your tickets in advance. Nextly, if you guys want to support this podcast and or you want some additional exclusive content, consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/backpackerradio. We're going to be doing another Patreon episode dedicated to Chaunce's final leg of the Northville-Placid Trail.
Yeah,
I guess spoiler alert there.
No, if you just heard that part where I said I was driving back and there was an accident and it took 6 hours, and then you were like, wow, what happened next? Yeah. That's the Patreon.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah, that's where we're picking up.
Yeah. Next week's episode will be an overview of mine and Chaunce's and Elise's hike on the Northville-Placid Trail, and then Chaunce had another segment to go. That will be a Patreon episode. We've also got an absolutely unhinged Patreon episode on the docket featuring Viking and Cuckoo. You'll hear more about that in their episode in a couple weeks, I guess.
Zach had to cut me off because I was ready to go for another 3 hours once we started getting into it, because we did guys stuff, which is essentially, if you've listened to the girl stuff episodes, picture that, but guys stuff. Yeah. And you might think most of the outdoor world is controlled by guys.
Yeah.
You know, why do we need a guy stuff episode? I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And it was the tip of the iceberg. Zach had to cut us off. He needed to go home.
There's something about taints. Was there a taint question?
It was mostly about penises, but I don't remember what questions they asked.
Yeah, naturally, guy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on borrowed time at home, so I kept it as long as possible. But yeah, you'll definitely get your money's worth on that episode. Yeah. And you can get involved as a Patreon supporter for as little as $5 per month. Pretty good. Lastly, but not leastly, if you are taking on a long-distance backpacking trip in 2025 and want your journey featured on the trek, our blogger application is now open. Going to be doing a whole host of fun new promos through the website, not least of which will be flying out one of the top bloggers from the 2025 season out to Denver, put you up for a couple nights, and you get to join us here on the podcast as a guest. So if that sounds appealing to you, please head to the link in the show notes and apply to join our team. All right, let's get to our interview with none other than James Appleton. We are joined by today's guest, James Appleton, as a coach, outdoors guide, and podcast host based in Lake Placid. James has thoroughly explored the Adirondack region, summiting all 46 high peaks over 4,000 feet, summiting 9 specific peaks in the Lake Placid Niner Challenge, and hiking the 138-mile Northville-Placid Trail. James, thank you so much for joining us here on Backpacker Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and welcome to Lake Placid.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for being our earliest podcast guest in the history of Backpacker Radio.
Ever.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We're usually a
Exciting.
nighttime podcast, as you could probably tell by my reading speed there. We're slowly waking up. I'll probably be sipping on this Red Bull throughout the interview. But yeah, guess let's start with, what was your introduction into the outdoors?
So I grew up in Lake Placid, which is like this small town in the Adirondack Park. 3,000 people live here. So a small town. So like anyone who grows up in a small town, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? You want to get the hell out. Like, you just want to leave. So growing up, like, the mountains are a part of culture here. You do things in the woods, you go in the mountains, you jump in the rivers, you swim in the lakes. But like, I didn't care at all. So you go to college, you leave. And then while I was in my 20s, I was touring in a band. And every time we'd get out west, Colorado, the Northwest, I'd be like looking around like, man, this is so awesome. These mountains and this and that. And it's just like, dude, you grew up with mountains literally all around you. If you go up to look at the Lake Placid High School, I mean, the vista of what you see, the mountains next to it, is out of control. But when you're a kid there, you don't recognize any of it. You don't care. You know, it's like you don't even notice it. So I had that realization when I was on tour. I was like, oh, there's a reason you like this, because it's like what you grew up doing. And then fast forward like a year later, my wife and I ended up moving, or I should say about like a year after that, like epiphany, my wife and I moved back up here, and then I started taking advantage of the mountains. Because I never did before, but it was like I had that realization on tour, like, you really like this because it's what you're used to. So I grew up doing stuff, but like didn't care, you know. And then it's very much one of those, like, when you don't know what you got till it's gone. So when you're not living here anymore, you know, you don't have mountains to go into, you don't have lakes and rivers to play in. So, and then fast forward as well, once we were here, because hiking kind of sucks when you're like in really bad shape, and every time you climb a mountain, because this is like a peakbagging kind of community. So like you climb mountains, and it sucks when you're in bad shape. So every time growing up, I would hike a mountain, I'd want to die when I got to the summit. So like I never wanted to do that. And then got in much better shape, lost a bunch of weight, got in shape. And then all of a sudden I hiked a mountain. I was like, whoa, that was like not very difficult. I actually made it up here. I don't want to kill myself. So that was the kind of catapult. And from there, it's just become like an obsession beyond belief. It's like it's actually changed the entire trajectory of my life.
Do you still have family in the area?
Yeah, my parents live like a mile down the road. Everyone else in my family is no longer here, but
yeah,
they're still here. Yeah,
it's nice to have the grandparents around for the
oh
kiddos.
my God, 3 kids. It's really nice to have them around.
Yeah. What are the hot spots in Lake Placid? Not that we get to take advantage of it because our time was last night, but for somebody that's hiking the trail, obviously this is the northern terminus.
Yeah, hot spots. I mean, like, I'm gonna tell you, I kind of stay home most of the time, but in terms of like, are we talking nightlife? Because if you're talking nightlife, not much.
No, just generally speaking, like if there's a restaurant to go to or like an outfitter, it could be anything really. Like
I honestly would say like just go walk around Mirror Lake. I think that's, which is like the main lake in the middle of the town. If you guys were like eating on Main Street yesterday, you were on Mirror Lake. It's kind of like the cool vibe about the town because there's a sidewalk around the 3 Mile Lake. So like that's where I would recommend. And then you go on Main Street, and if you look at Main Street, it's got this like kind of a movie type of quality too, like that small town, mountain town vibe. And they do a good job on Main Street. I would say that would be my suggestion. You just walk around Main Street. It does have that kind of movie type of feel to it.
Yeah. And do you do winter sports? I know that you still peak bag in the winter, but anything where you're sliding down a mountain?
Up here, you have to take advantage of winter because otherwise it's too long.
Yeah.
It's like winter's like 6 months up here. So if you don't take advantage of it and do something where you want snow to come, it's too freaking long. So I actually just hiking. I mean, that's what I do in the winter. I find honestly like a perfect winter day on the trail to me is so much better than a perfect summer day on the trail. You get the snowshoes on, the trails are nice and like they're like little sidewalks as you walk up the mountain. The vibe with the fluffy Dr. Seuss snow on the mountains is so much cooler than in the summertime. So I hike. I grew up snowboarding, and then once I went to college, you're only home for a couple weeks in Christmas time, and it's slowly kind of phased out, and now it's an expensive sport to continue. So I just hike.
Yeah,
that's my winter sport. And then I'm going to start cross country skiing this year. I told my wife like, finally, I'll get some skis, I'll join you, and we'll start cross country skiing because she likes doing that. But I've never done that.
Seems like good hiking cross training. Give your joints a little bit of a break and still.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Well, it's also good up here because to get to the mountains, like there's always a 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 mile approach just to get to the base of the mountain to start climbing. Whereas if you're cross country skiing that, all of a sudden, I just cut the hike down tremendously time wise. So it becomes efficient. Yeah, you got to carry your boots and your snowshoes on your pack and carry more in when you're skiing in. But it's a pretty popular thing for people to do. Cross country ski to the base and then switch over, leave your skis at the bottom, start climbing.
Yeah.
So I'll probably start doing that.
Tell me about the Blue Line Bakery.
The Blue Line Bakery. How amazing that you learned about that. The Blue Line Bakery is a cookie stand that my wife owns. It's a farm stand basically. She makes all these cookies, leaves them in our stand, which is a lean-to that we built, an Adirondack lean-to, and it's all hiking themed. And you get your cookies on the weekend, leave money in the thing. It's honor system, and no one has ever taken anything. Everything's been accounted for. It's a fun little business, and it grows every weekend, and it's become like this little hit amongst the hiking community. And me with my podcast and people coming up here to hike, like that's the majority of her customers. So it's kind of neat how it's taken off. But yeah, it's a cookie stand. Fantastic cookies also, might I add. 5 ounces, giant.
Give us the inside info. What's the best cookie?
My favorite cookie, she does such a good job. And I don't say this because she's my wife. I say this because she really does just do so well. She takes like your average cookie and then like puts these little tasteful tweaks to it. That's like her own vibe, and it's very good. The Bear Cub maple. Bear Cub's a road in town. It's where the maple syrup is from that she gets. Maple. I'm really into maple. I don't know if you guys are into maple, but I'm super like obsessed with maple syrup.
Zach had a maple Manhattan last night.
I sure did. Yeah.
There you go. And I would say also the Mint Marcy. So Mount Marcy is the tallest peak in New York State, so she calls that one the Mint Marcy. Everyone likes chocolate and mint and stuff. It's got like chocolate Oreos crushed up in it as well, mints. It's so freaking good.
And where is this? What's lean-to?
Yeah, it's the lean-to over on Juniper Circle, Lake Placid.
Okay.
We're gonna lose Zach later.
Yeah, I'm already
Find him.
daydreaming about cookies.
Luckily for you, it's literally like a quarter of a mile from where we are sitting right now.
Oh, really?
That's unlucky for us, and when we start this trail today.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a note here that you worked in the film industry.
Still do. Yeah, still do. Yeah, I've worked. I mean, that's what, I went to college for television production. So like, that's my like career, I should say. I've worked in the film industry since I was 22, movies, TV shows. I swing the microphone, so I'm a boom operator. So an audio guy by trade, which is why like podcasting made sense.
Oh, can you give us an audit on our system right here?
It works. So we were already talking about the audio, the system you got set up. It looks fine to me. It works. I'm a very bottom line guy. Does it sound good? Yep. Does it work? Yep. What else is there? What else do you need?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've worked on TV shows and movies since I was 22. So like the industry, the whole kind of vibe of television and film, like it does get lost on you eventually because like I can't even watch movies that take place at night because I'm just like, oh my God, the people when they were shooting this, like they were working overnights for probably like 2 months. Like, oh my God, like it literally gives me anxiety because I've done so many of these jobs like that. But yeah, it's
How old
work.
are your kids?
My 3 daughters, 10, 5, almost 6, and 2 next week.
Tell me if you do this, because my dad came from TV and he also did this, which was when we were young and we would watch stuff on TV.
Mm-hmm.
He would stand kind of in front of it and just comment on all the things that were wrong, or like you're saying how you can't watch the nighttime stuff, just pointing out all this stuff. And
I 100% will point out the stunt double. Like I'll immediately know when, that was definitely a stunt, and I'll notice like, oh, that person's kind of like slightly a different shape than the guy or the woman, or I'll notice those things. Those things I point out constantly, and my wife will notice. I'll point out, oh man, they must have worked so many nights to do this shot, or like that shot would have been an entire day. And it's not because I want to. It's just like
you can't not.
I don't mean to at all.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm that annoying when watching a movie. So.
Well, he would take the remote, and because he did color and stuff, so he would take the remote and stand in front of the TV so you couldn't see it, and change the colors until it looked perfect. And we'd just be sitting there like, we don't notice, this is fine. Right. We're watching cartoons.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious because when I'm on set and like the cinematographer is like doing his thing and taking 2 hours to light a shot, I'm always like, I always tell people, it's like, will Lori Appleton, my mother, would Lori Appleton notice if that light was there or this light was there? No, she will not give a damn. Who cares? Let's just shoot so we can go home. So it's funny. It's funny because I take that approach of like, nobody will notice all these things we do, but it is what it is. That's why I said like earlier, like, does it sound good? Yep. Cool. Does it sound like, will anybody notice the difference between 90% perfection and 100% perfection? No. Yeah. Maybe like the trained audio guy, but who cares?
Yeah, you'll know.
Who cares? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Lori Appleton won't care.
Yeah.
What's the coolest movie you've done?
Man, it's been a long career here. I look at movies in terms of how was the job more so than like how was the movie. So I kind of have a different perspective, but like movies that I did that were like very successful. I did a movie called The Holdovers that was Best Picture nominee this past year. West Side Story, the Spielberg movie. I did Clifford, the Big Red Dog. That was a fun movie.
You got to work with Spielberg?
Yeah.
That's cool. How's he?
He's like intense, but also intense in like a good way, in the sense of, I mean, he's Steven Spielberg. Like, he's the number one. So like he's perfection, quite frankly. But his sets, like anything, are like, they're kind of high stress because you got to be on it, right? Sure. Like you got to be on it. And film industry, Hollywood has a tendency to fire people pretty quickly, so people are kind of on edge. But overall, he's actually better than you may expect. Fun story: I once said good morning to Steven Spielberg and Bruce Springsteen within 5 seconds of each other, because Bruce was on set as a guest, and they walked by. Hey, good morning, Steven. Good morning, Bruce. Yeah, so that was a fun fact. That was a fun moment.
That's a cool
because I'm
day.
actually like a big Bruce Springsteen guy.
Yeah,
so it was cool. It's cool.
Have you ever done a sex scene in a movie?
I've never done a sex
scene. Been
Held
on production.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah, hundreds of them probably.
Yeah. I imagine they have to be very awkward.
Incredibly.
Yeah.
For us, for the actors, for everybody. And like they like clear the set. It's weird. Like they clear the set, they clear the monitors, all these things, and it's like the whole world is going to see you on camera. So it's weird that you like do this whole thing, but yeah, hundreds of them. And holding a microphone, I'm like, if I'm being honest, sex scenes are super awkward, but for me, like passionate kissing scenes are worse because I'm having a microphone like right above your head. And so I like take the microphone off because most people have not heard kissing on a microphone.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yep.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Like
you
eating.
need to stop.
It's no.
That was so bad just for those few seconds.
Yeah, no, everyone's turned on now.
Yeah, so I have to take my headphones off because I can't take it. But yeah, hundreds of them.
Are they wearing something? They have to be wearing something, right? Like,
not always.
No.
I mean, sometimes, like, yes, there is something the women and men wear down below.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much all the time, actually. And then they'll shoot, the angles accordingly, right? So, yeah, there is something that they're wearing. But yeah, so many of them. always awkward.
It's only dawned on me recently how awkward that must be, because like I think you're supposed to just enjoy a sex scene in a movie, but like I'm like, these are paid actors, usually married, and like yeah, they're just grinding on each other, pretending to have, like, it's a weird thing to do.
No, absolutely. And you know, it's like half the time the actors like they talk to each other and like they're friendly and stuff, but they're not like chilling. They're just like, this person goes to their trailer, this person goes to their trailer, and then they come together for this.
I think about that scene from Love Actually, where the guy from who also plays someone in Lord of the Rings. You don't watch Lord of the Rings. There's a
or Love Actually.
I've never seen either of them either.
Oh my God, guys, Love Actually, it's a Christmas movie, and there's like a bunch of different storylines they follow, and one of the guys is like a sex actor, and he's just like having fake sex with this girl while being like, so what'd you do this weekend? Like, and just chatting.
There's also this is new the last few years. Like there's a new job in the film industry. It's called a intimacy coordinator, where they'll like choreograph the sex scene. Yeah. Fascinating line of work.
I wonder what the qualifications are for that job.
Have you seen Team America, either of you?
Nope.
Best sex scene in the history of cinema. They're puppets, but it's the South Park guys, so you can imagine how it goes. But okay, so I obviously want to talk all about the Adirondacks, but I first want to talk about the fact that you are fucking jacked. Like, you don't look like the average hiker that we interview.
Oh boy.
So tell me, because I know you do training and coaching. Tell me about, is it difficult to do all these peaks carrying so much on the upper half? Because again, you look like you could be like a bodybuilder.
Yeah, I mean, I think I take a different approach to like, and I definitely take a different approach, mainly because like backpacking, like what you guys are about to go do on the NPT, Northville-Placid Trail, is like different than climbing high peaks here in like in the Adirondacks in particular, because we have like the worst trails in the country, but it's also like a point of pride because, you know, our trails, there are no switchbacks here. The trails find a drainage and they go straight up the damn mountain. So that's like kind of the culture here. An element of strength is like, you have to be strong because you're pulling yourself up by roots. You're climbing over boulders. You're going up these steep slabs. Like, you're just going straight up a mountain. And it sounds like what it is. Like, you're literally just going straight up because most of our trails just go straight up. So I think because of that, I take this approach of like, you need to get your body stronger so that you can properly do it. You need to be able to move like an athlete and move athletically because, you know, just literally I was guiding on Friday and we went up this one mountain called the Seymour in the Seward Range in the Adirondacks. It's a high peak. And there was multiple sections where it's like, you're literally climbing up by a route on the side of the slab, and then you're climbing over this one boulder, and then after you get over that boulder, you have to skirt across the slab and then climb up again. It's like, if you don't have the ability and the strength, especially upper body, to do that, you're not getting up. You're just not going to make it to the summit. And that's like the normal here. Whereas like when you're backpacking, you know, it's more of like rolling trails, rolling hills. Maybe you're climbing some sections and whatnot, but that's just like the culture here. So I think because of that, I take this strength training approach to hiking, and whenever you're strong, it's never going to be a weakness. So the stronger you are, upper body and lower body, the more successful you'll be. So it kind of takes like, if backpacking is like running, then peakbagging is like high intensity interval training, strength training. Like they're similar, they use similar kind of needs, but they're just kind of slightly different, if that makes sense. So that's kind of why that is my approach.
We get emails every now and then from someone who uses a line like, I'm just a day hiker, but talking about the long distance hiking stuff.
Yep.
For what you're saying of how a trail like Northville-Placid would compare to actually summiting a peak, would it be flipped here where instead of someone messaging a thru hiker and being like, I'm just a day hiker, is it, I'm just a thru hiker and the impressive thing is the day hiker that's doing all the peaks?
Well, I mean, they're just like I said, like they're just like different kind of physicality that you need. And obviously anyone could do both, right? But there's just something very different. So for example, you'll see memes of it online too. Like there's like the ongoing joke in the Adirondack like hiking community is, I hike out west, ... This was really hard, because it's just different. And it's not because we've done anything. These trails most of them were cut 100 years ago, and the point was to get tourists to the summits of mountains. So what's the fastest way up? Go up the damn mountain. Just go up. So that's kind of how the trails have occurred. But anyone could do both. They're just like different kind of needs. So, you know, whether you're a backpacker, whether you're a thru hiker, or I'm sorry, a peak bagger, as we could. I think peak bagging is supposed to be like a derogatory term, but it's like it just describes what we do. So let it be, you know, whatever. I think they're just different, similar but different. I call them cousins more than I call them like people doing both, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like with the peaks, like you guys love lists. You
Yes,
love crossing things
that's our
off
culture
lists.
here. Yeah, big time.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seems like there is a lot of overlap with like the New England, New York mentality of being type A and like trying to achieve things and having bucket
big
lists.
Time.
Yeah.
It's the Adirondack culture. Like I say it on my podcast all the time. Like you just embrace it. Like we have lists. Like, but the lists are good. So like I run a challenge myself called the Lake Placid Niner, and it's like every time I get a registration, not every time, but so often people would be like, I would have never known about XYZ mountain if it wasn't for this list. All it does is it gives somebody a goal to shoot for. It gives someone, you know, who doesn't know the area, because this is a tourist area. People come here, or they come up to hike here, I mean. So it gives them like an itinerary. Here it is laid out for you. Hike these mountains. You'll have a fantastic experience. And yeah, that sense of accomplishment, like you're just stacking wins. Like you do this list. Oh, great. I was able to do that. Look at this adventure I had. Here's a patch that represents like my memories from this adventure. Okay, what's the next one? And all it is it's just giving you incentive to go climb these mountains over here, climb these mountains over there. But yeah, it's 1000% the culture. And it's not even in the Northeast. It's just like the Adirondack culture. And it started because of the 46 high peaks. You hike all 46, you become an Adirondack 46er. Which is an actual like organization, nonprofit organization that puts all of their money back into the 46 high peaks, the trails here. So it's like an awesome organization. And like even every person that works for them is all volunteer. So every dollar that goes to it goes right back into the mountains. So becoming a 46er is this cultural thing up here, but also it's like it represents an amazing adventure that 46 mountains, it's a lot right off the bat, but it's like a transformative journey. Like it changed literally my trajectory in my life and thousands of others that have done it. So I think because of those lists, it just gives you a goal to shoot for. And then that, you know, snowballs into something else. So I think that's kind of why that's become our culture. And because of the 46, like other lists have popped up. And then like there's some in New Hampshire now, and there's one in Massachusetts. There's one in Vermont, but it's all kind of stemmed from this sort of vibe here.
Oh, does the Adirondack 46er predate the White's Peaks Challenge?
Well, I don't know do they have an actual official, like people can summit the 48 in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an actual like organization that you become a part of. I don't believe there is. I could be wrong, but I don't think that there is.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's a huge deal out there. Like
sure.
Redlining the Deer Tessima, like I know all that. We've interviewed several people.
Yeah, of course. And there's like, you know, people compare the Adirondacks to New Hampshire in terms of like the closest thing to hiking here. You know, I know on the Appalachian Trail, most people say like that New Hampshire to Maine is like the toughest spot.
Yeah,
but the Adirondack Park is like that's the hike. That's the only hiking we have here.
Yeah.
So it's like all we kind of know.
Yeah,
is that sort of.
How do the Adirondack Peaks compare to the Whites? Have you done much in the Whites?
They're similar. The trails in the New Hampshire are better.
Okay,
they're better.
Yeah,
but that's the closest thing to what you'll get here. Like I said, like our trails just find a river, find a drainage, and go up them.
Yeah.
Go up it. Sometimes you're in the river, sometimes you're right next to it. It's that, and then like I know in New Hampshire, most of the 48, like you can kind of park along the road somewhere, and you're kind of just ready to start going up. Whereas here, the joke is, and I said on my podcast all the time, the joke is like time for the long walk back to the lodge, because there's everywhere you go, there's a 4-mile approach, 6-mile approach. There's like, for example, of the 46 high peaks, there's 3 hikes totaling 5 mountains where you like park at you park at the trailhead and you just like start hiking up. Everything else, at least a 4 to 5 mile approach, at least. So, and then you get to the mountain, then you have 2 miles up or a mile up, and you know whatnot. So
yeah,
they just become really freaking long. But that's just what it is, because it's a rugged land, right? Like the Adirondacks is the largest protected wilderness in the United States. So people don't understand how big it is, but it's also, I think there's like 100,000 year-round residents in the whole park, this is bigger than 6 different states in America. It's just gigantic wilderness that you like live in. So with that, the infrastructure is designed to keep it wild. So like there's not going to be roads through the mountains, right? It's just kind of is what it is, which is the beauty of it too.
Yeah.
What are the most common 46ers to start off with if you're just starting your list?
Typically mountains called Cascade and Porter are probably where most people start. They're like one of those hikes where I said you can just park at the bottom and go up. It's those 2 mountains which you hike together are the most traveled mountains in the park, 100%. And you just kind of go straight up. It's a short hike, maybe 5 miles round trip, not very long.
Is it crowded?
Big time.
Yeah.
You mentioned that most of these hikes have long approaches. Are the approach trails pretty well marked? Like, are they easy to follow?
At this point, every trail is easy to follow.
Okay.
Because it's just like, it's so popular.
Yeah.
And especially like you guys understand, like with COVID, even like the boom in outdoor recreation is even more now. So for example, when I was I think I would have been in like 6th grade, a friend of mine finished their Adirondack 46. He was in 8th or 9th grade. So that would have been like late 90s, maybe like 98 or something. I'm 38 now. His 46er number is like 4,000. And right now, so that was 98. The 46ers, I think, started in the 1930s. So he was like 4,000. Now I think they're up to like 18,000. Mm-hmm. So obviously in the last 20 years, like just enormous boom.
Yeah.
But that's just like what people go to the outdoors, right? Like I know a lot of people are like, oh, there's so many people on the trail, but it's like, dude, yeah, but people are like going outdoors. They're going out there for the same thing that you're going out there for. This is a beautiful thing. Yeah, obviously it becomes, you have to get a little more creative sometimes to have that, solitude that you seek. But especially around here, dude, there's a billion places you could go where you can get that solitude. And then, newsflash, you'd always go off trail and actually see how well you handle the wilderness and how well you can navigate and have the time of your life by yourself. But most people are too scared to venture off trail.
Yeah.
Don't have the navigation skills.
On the subject of navigation, assuming you're sticking to the trail, someone doesn't need map and compass skills. Someone should always have that, obviously disclaimer, but just to do the 46ers out here, they don't need map and compass skills.
No, you don't. I mean, the trails are all like, not all the trails are actual like maintained trails, like DEC maintained trails. A lot of them are called herd paths, which are just, non-maintained trails, or they used to be called trailless peaks, but like by now there's a trail up all of them, and it's very obvious. I honestly find it hard to get lost. Like people get lost every week. You get the ranger report, and this person got lost, these people got, and I'm just like, I don't know how. Like the trails, I mean, it's obvious. But also it's interesting though, and I actually realized this on the Northville-Placid Trail, coincidentally. There's a lot of stretches on that where you are going to stop and look around and like try to find the trail, right? Whether you're trying to find a trail marker, there's not many of them on the Northville-Placid Trail, but it's pretty like obvious. But there's gonna be lots of sections like that, and you stop and look around. And I noticed on the Northville-Placid Trail, and I've noticed it in the high peaks too, and I think it really does come with experience. So maybe I shouldn't like say like how did they get lost, but in general the trails are pretty obvious. But I remember so many times like you kind of zone out, right? When you're backpacking, a lot of times you just kind of zone out and start walking. And on the Northville-Placid Trail, within like 1 to 2 steps from being zoned out, I would just stop. I'm not on trail anymore. And I just would notice that immediately, despite it. But then you look around the woods, you're like, there is no trail anywhere. It just looks like woods. But it's like, oh, actually, it's right here. But like, it would just like hit me like a ton of bricks when I'm like lost in my thoughts. But I do find, so maybe that does come with experience with hiking and kind of knowing what to look for and like what it feels like when you're off trail. But it was wild how 1 step, maybe 2 steps, and you just would know. It would snap you out of the daze.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about the Lake Placid Niner, something that you created. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I basically, I basically created a hiking challenge around Lake Placid that utilizes the smaller mountains, the sub high peaks, so like under 4,000 feet. And it was designed because I'm very much like I want to help introduce you to get there. Just like I was saying with the outdoors, like people are coming here, fantastic. Like they're getting into the outdoors. So it was just like an idea of mine to help people get to the high peaks instead of just going straight to the high peaks. So like there's smaller mountains, and the way that I have it laid out is like, okay, hike this one, then hike this one, it's a little bigger, then hike this one, oh, it's a little longer, or it's a little steeper. And by the time you do the 9, you now have a way better grasp on the outdoors in general, on hiking in general, on the trails here in general. And they create, all 9 mountains create like a fantastic Adirondack experience in terms of the summits. Like they're all worth like millions of visits. And the point of that was to be like an introduction to hiking in the ADK and prepare you for the high peaks, because that's kind of like where I think I fall into that, helping people get prepared so that they can go have a successful outdoors adventure. And that just kind of was in line with it. Actually, that's what literally started all of it. I started that before I started the podcast. That was my first introduction into doing something above and beyond just going outside.
Yeah. You mentioned growing up that you were not in good shape. You were heavier. Was there like a single moment that like the switch flipped for you?
Yeah. So I always played sports, and I was always on all-star teams. Like I was always very athletic, but I was also like the fat kid on the team who can move, and he's big, but like the fat kid, right? We all know what it's like, or we all know those people, very athletic, but can still move, but are still large. So it was December of 2014. My first daughter was born September 2014. So 3 months in, I was just shy of 300 pounds. My wife was literally laying in bed, was like, so like, what's the deal here? Like, what is your, and her phrase was, what is your end game here? And that was like, whoa, gut punch. And then I literally leaned over to my phone, texted a buddy of mine who's like a personal trainer, was like, hey dog, I need some help. He was actually in my band, so like very close, very tight knit dude, or I'm very tight knit with him. And that was it, dude. Cue the Rocky theme music, and that was the catalyst. And then here we are. So that was 2014. So coming up on 10 years of this like life transformation, and that started the journey, we'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now
that's awesome.
It's crazy to think about, but yeah, that was the moment though. What's your end game here?
Yeah. Did you set up rules for yourself in terms of diet or exercise? Like what were the things that got you?
Yeah. So for the next like year, so here you go, write this down. You want to lose a bunch of weight. For the next year, all I did was show up to train, whether that's body weight training, whether that's lifting in the gym, whether that's like hiking, like whatever it may be. And I ate meat and vegetables. That was like that's what I did. I ate meat and vegetables. No, what was it? Is it a meat or a vegetable? Yep. Then I'll eat it, and I'll eat as much of it as I want, because they're typically like lower calories and you can fill up. You know, you eat a lot of grilled chicken or some steak and some broccoli, like it's pretty inherently low calorie. So I was still in a caloric deficit coming from like, you know, Subway sandwiches twice a day, you know, like that sort of thing. And that's what I did for like a year. And that was what kickstarted. And then again, showing up. So I started with like little crappy body weight training programs I found online, doing them in my dining room. And then that evolved to buying some equipment that went into my shed, and I built a gym in there. And then that evolved to, now I probably have like $10,000 worth of gym equipment in my garage. But that's what it started. It evolved very organically like that.
Yeah.
Now we know whose garage to rob.
Exactly.
Yeah. Come on over. I'm right down the street.
Yeah.
What is your guilty pleasure snack during this time? For Zach, it's donuts. But what's the one thing that you see it and you're like, fuck the meat and chicken?
Oh, well, I mean, I still like, I'm not going to live life without pizza. Like I eat pizza, right? Like I still eat, but that was like that was my like lose the first, I probably like 60 pounds over the next like year was just meat and vegetables. Like that's where I started. But it has never come back because I've always just slowly kind of done it. But in terms of guilty pleasure, are we talking trail or are we talking just life in general?
I was just thinking over the course of 60 pounds, there's got to be some times where you're like,
chips are my like, I need that salty crunch. I go chips more than I'll go like sweet treat.
Yeah.
Obviously I like a sweet treat, but
Yeah. Are you still pretty strict with your diet, I imagine?
I mean, I'm very cognizant of it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're not, like, that's how people drop weight. And then, everyone who yo-yos, it's like, yeah, you went back up because you stopped. Like,
Yeah.
that's why, the old saying, what you did to lose it, you got to do to maintain it. So yeah, you have to always kind of be cognizant of it. Otherwise it's going to just slowly creep back up. And it doesn't happen like you don't go one day, you don't lose 30 pounds and 2 weeks later you gained it back. No, it's slowly over time. And then all of a sudden you look in the mirror and you're like, shit, I'm 45 pounds heavier now. I've gained even more weight than I lost.
Yeah. Was it difficult to work out basically cutting carbs out of your diet?
Not really. I mean, I was not starving, right? Like I had a lot of stuff in reserve there, but not really. No.
Okay. I could talk about this subject a lot more, but I want to talk about backpacking and hiking. Yeah. So I guess I don't want to go too deep down the Northville-Placid Trail because we're about to hike it, and
totally.
we got to leave some meat on the bone. What are the highlights that like we absolutely can't miss, or the things that we should be excited about for this trail?
Well, the thing about the Northville-Placid Trail in terms of like Adirondack hiking, like it never goes on top of a mountain. So you don't end up going and being on a summit and like, holy crap, look at all this. The thing that's neat about the Northville-Placid Trail, in my opinion, and you'll just realize this, is you are going to be so far from anybody, anything. Like there's going to be a point where you are 20 miles away from any road in both directions. Like you're on your own out there. And I think that is kind of the quality of it that is really appealing and really interesting and really like Adirondacks, because it is such a remote spot. So I think that is the neat part. But also it's like in terms of what do you look for? Like instead of going up mountains, like the thing about the Northville-Placid Trail that's nice is the amount of backcountry lakes that you're going to cross. Lakes that there haven't been no boat has ever been in here because you couldn't get a boat back here. And it's just like, you're really in the thick of Adirondack backcountry. So I think that's more of the fun kind of element to it.
Yeah.
You're out there and you are on your own.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Being somewhere that it can be so remote in certain spots or in big spots, what kind of wildlife can we hope to see?
They claim there's bear in the Adirondack Park, but I've never seen one in the woods. I've only seen one in my garbage can. So I would say that if you see a bear, you are so freaking lucky. Deer, you'll see occasionally, probably not much. You'll see tons of moose tracks and, moose droppings. You'll see that very often. Birds, toads. I always make the joke on the podcast because people are always asking me like, what do you need for protection for animals in the ADK? It's like there's no predators here. You got coyotes are like the top of the food chain, and fox are the top of the food chain here. You're going to see toads, you're going to see birds, and you're going to see squirrels. Like that's what you're going to see.
Do you not see the moose?
If you do, you're like so freaking lucky.
Really?
So lucky.
Okay.
You'll see signs of the moose like constantly.
Yeah.
One of our
I hope you
hiking
do.
companions, she has a moose sense, we call it, because she can always tell when a moose is nearby.
I love that.
Her hair starts standing up.
Well, we saw 4 of them on the Teton Crest Trail, and that was a 3-day hike. And every time
badass.
before we saw them, she was like, "There's a moose near here," and then sure enough,
She's just looking at a moose.
Yeah,
You're
she's
like, how do you
smelling
know
the
this?
dirt.
The moose whisperer. That's very
Get her,
cool.
boy.
That's a great skill to have. I wish I had that same skill.
Yeah.
I wish I had that same skill for like Adirondack bucks because hunting season's coming up. So I wish I had that, but I do not have that skill.
Do you hunt in the Adirondacks?
I do, yeah. It's like the same mountain adventure, and then like it provides meat. I like to eat a lot of meat, so it's like kind of checks 2 boxes for me.
Yeah. So obviously in the next podcast, we're going to do a recap of our hike, but I highly encourage people to check out your recap of the Northville-Placid Trail because it's a style that we don't even have the competency to make happen. It's like an audio documentary. You've got music, you've got the sounds of the wilderness, and you give like a very detailed play-by-play. Every day is its own podcast. Yeah, it's just really interesting and well done.
Thank you. That's what my whole podcast is like. That is the essence of like the 46 of 46 podcast. It's like I wanted you to feel like you are on the trail, not like sitting in your car commuting to work. So, that's how my show started, and my show still continues in that same like trail documentary narrative storytelling kind of vibe, because I started it by telling my 46er journey. Like that's how my podcast started. I told the journey. I released every episode Netflix style when I did it. In fact, it took me longer to write, record, and edit the first season of the podcast than it took me to actually hike all 46 high peaks, to give you an idea of how long it took. And then people just asked for more episodes. So I was like, I'm always hiking. I guess I could keep doing it. So it just kind of has evolved. And now I do so many different types of episodes, including episodes like this where it was like talking with someone. But yeah, that whole like on the trail episode, it's definitely the essence of what makes my podcast like what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you liked it. I actually think the Northville-Placid Trail series, those 8 episodes, I think those are like my best episodes. I was really pleased with it.
Yeah, it's like almost like a Rick Steves style documentary. It was very well done.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm an audio guy. What can I do? I like to tell stories, so let me just tell the story and then cut back and forth to like on the trail, so you feel like you're out in the woods instead of sitting in traffic trying to get over the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Are all of the effects in the series things that you actually recorded on trail, or are these things that like you're downloading off of like GarageBand and inserting?
There's all sorts. I mean, I have a pretty decent library by now of like things I've recorded, trail footsteps, lakes, rivers, and then obviously some I have to get online. But I do a lot of editing. Like if you see some of the timelines of some of my episodes, like it looks like a movie editing timeline. There's just so much happening. Like my Adirondack campfire stories, if you listen to those episodes, that's like a little movie in terms of like the audio and the sound effects. And so some of the things I find online, some of the things I record myself, little mix, but like anything on the trail, birds, squirrels, rivers, wind, leaves. Yeah, that's like out in the woods.
We should record our trail farts and just start inserting them in the episodes.
I will not be doing that. That's a you thing.
I'll do it.
Well, when we have people on that have recorded like videos that are huge on YouTube about their hikes or trail documentaries or any of that, usually they have a pretty, more than the average person intense setup for what they're bringing for capturing the video. As an audio person, are you finding that you're out there with like a slew of microphones, or what is it that you bring to capture sounds on the trail? I
have a Zoom F1 recorder that just like I attach to my chest clip on my backpack, and that's what I record. That's what I use. And then if I go out to actually record audio, I might use a different microphone with a different recorder, just like a little handheld recorder, just to go do it specifically. But 9 times out of 10, it's just like this one recorder. I'm just recording my voice, because by now I have most of these sounds recorded, but that's pretty much what I do.
Where some people would be like, oh man, that's a great view, I need to get a photo. Is there any sounds that you're like, everyone shut up, I need to get this audio?
Usually just when I'm just, like if I'm guiding and I'm doing an episode, I'll just be like, all right, I'm just going to do a track real quick, or just like say something. But 9 times out of 10, I actually don't have anyone shut up, so that it actually feels like this is what it was like out here. I want to hear you talking, or I want to hear over there. So not really. I know I should probably be more visual, and like obviously YouTube is where people are much more successful, but like, I don't know. I'm just an audio guy, so I just do it. I just do what I do. Yeah. Not too exciting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you have a full-time job in the film and TV industry, podcasts, book, you do guiding. Do you sleep? Like, what do you have free time?
I mean, I get out there.
Yeah.
I get out there. No, I mean, I've worked in the film industry since I was 22, but also it's a freelance world, right? So it's like you work when there's work, and then you find the next job when it's done. Nobody gives you work. So it's just like you work for yourself doing it. So because of that, it has allowed me to have a lifestyle where I can work if I want, and like say no if I don't want to take a job. So I have other businesses like the guiding, and which is all part of like the podcast and all that we'll just call that like a business. So it does allow me to pick and choose what I'm doing. And over the last couple of years, I've definitely slowly been phasing out of career number 1, which is film industry, and like phasing up the outdoor stuff, 46 outdoors.
If things went your way, would you break free of that entirely?
100%.
Yeah.
I've had enough of Hollywood and their their antics.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would and that's the goal. Like that's what I'm working towards. And it's a fast approaching, quite frankly. Like this past year, I've done very minimal. I've done like, I did a movie and then like a handful of weeks on like different TV shows, like very minimal, because the other businesses are just moving. They're just the coaching, the guiding. It's just moving. I'm guiding on Sunday in the mountains again. So it's like, it just kind of works, but it's the kind of the life I'm looking for. Like my nightmare is go to one place, work there for, 9 to 5, let's say Monday through Friday, other than 2 weeks a year, you will be there. Like that's my nightmare. I can't handle that. I prefer the more kind of chaos of it all. Where am I going to go? I might be available next Tuesday. I might not be available. I don't know. But there is also a double-edged sword with that. Like if people say, hey, want to go do X, Y, and Z a month and a half from now? I'm like, dude, I cannot plan something that far. I have no idea. I might be on a job then. I might be in New York City working. I might be in Boston working. I might be here. I might be available. Talk to me like a few days before. So I can't. So there is, there's cons to that lifestyle, but I do a lot, I guess. But it's because I've kind of done that on purpose, I guess.
Sure. It's all synergistic. I'm sure everything feeds off of the other thing.
In my businesses, everything kind of like scratches the back of everything else. The Hollywood thing is like the other thing.
Yeah.
But that's what started it all. That allowed me the time to do it. Because like if I'm on a job, we work 60 to 70 hour weeks. So it's like, that's your life. But if I'm not on a job, I'm working 0 hours.
Yeah.
So it has allowed that kind of building process to be there.
How big are the groups that you're guiding?
So I either do, like people can book me for just like one-on-one, which is what I'm doing this weekend. But I've been recently this past year, I started launching guided group hikes. So it's like, go to my website. I'm hiking X mountain on this day. 6 people can come along, 7 people can come along, and people sign up. It's like a discounted rate because it's like a group hike. And then they can go out and hike these like big remote mountains with other people, with the safety of other people, with the camaraderie of other people. And then it's also a more affordable rate for, hiring a guide. So it works out very well, but typically like 4 to 6 people are probably going on those. It gets a little much if you got more than that, because different hiking skills, personalities, but that's a good like middle ground.
Yeah.
What goes into becoming a guide?
So in New York State, you got to get your guide's license. Although, let me be honest with you, I don't even know. The more I think about it, I don't even know if you actually technically need a guide's license. If I wanted to pay you to take me here, who is New York State to say like, you can't do that? So I actually don't even know. A lot
of liabilities.
I don't even know how that works in terms. Obviously, to get insurance, you probably need the guide's license, but you could also just do it without that. But you have to pass a test to become a guide, and then you have to take different training. So like there's like water training, there's first aid, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's some trainings and then test.
What's the craziest story you have from one of your guided trips? Somebody showing up in like jeans and...
No, because I give them a good primer. Here's what I need you to have beforehand. Let me know if you have any questions. I haven't had any weird stories there. One of the more unfortunate things, I should say, it's not like crazy story like that, but so over the winter, this past winter, we did a trip on these mountains here called Algonquin, Iroquois, and Wright. Algonquin's the second tallest peak in the Adirondacks, so it's like a big hike. And in the winter, you can butt slide down so many sections of trail, which is pretty interesting. Like you just get down on your butt and you can just like on a sled go down, sometimes for like a quarter of a mile. It's unbelievable. Wow. So we were with this one guy was with us. His name's Zach, great dude. But it was his first time hiking in the Adirondacks, period. But he had all the gear and everything he needed, but it was his first time. We were coming down Algonquin and did the butt sliding thing, and he dropped his cell phone fell out of his pocket. So we had like butt slid like a quarter of a mile.
Sounds like me.
And then we're all like, well, great. I guess we got to go find it. So then we had to walk and it was literally like right where we started.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So we had to go all the way back up. So that ended up being like an hour plus delay as we're also searching the trail, trying to find it, and just continuing to go back up the mountain, back up.
Yeah.
That sucked. Damn you, Zach.
Yeah, damn you, Zach.
Those Zachs and their phones.
They're the worst.
Falling.
All right, I want to talk about the peaks just in general. What is your favorite peak to hike?
in the ADK here. Probably just honestly Mount Marcy, which is the tallest mountain, but like it's just like you get on that summit and you're on. I mean, it's hard to describe. I mean, you're 360 degree. The summit is as big as a football field. It's exposed. It's just massive, and it gives you like the view of the world. Like you can see into Canada on top of Mount Marcy. So it's like that would definitely be my top pick. But I wouldn't recommend if you're coming to the ADK, you haven't done this before, don't just go right to that mountain. I would not recommend that.
What's the hardest peak?
I don't know if there's necessarily hard. It's just like some of the mountains are so remote that it's just like you're going to climb these 2 mountains, but it's still going to be a 19-mile day because you got to get there and get back. And then there's some mountains where it's like I was talking about earlier about kind of needing that athletic quality to get up some of them because there's so many slabs. There's a mountain called Allen Mountain that is 8 miles just to the base, and then it's a 1.5 miles up, but I think it's like 2,500 feet of gain. So, it's up there, which isn't like, that's not like too crazy or too out of the norm, but that mountain going up it is like a couple wrong steps and you're in trouble and you're so far out there. So I would say that would probably be one. Then there's another mountain that people talk about a lot called Cooksakraga. And it's just, you have to cross this like disgusting, hideous bog to get out there. And that's like it's like a rite of passage on your Adirondack 46er journey. Everyone will talk about their time at the Cooksakraga bog. Actually, in my book, the Adirondack Campfire Stories, there's a whole campfire story about the Cooksakraga bog because it lends itself to that like dismal type of place. But I would say those would probably be it. That's what I would call them. If you ever come to the ADK, good luck if you're going to those mountains. What
would you say is 1 or 2 of the ones on the list that people put off doing because it's just like I don't want to do that one?
Yeah, that would be Cooksakraga, which is part of the Santanoni range. So there's 3 mountains that you hike that day. Allen, which is the one I just said, that's just because it's so far. It's a great hike. On a rainy day, it's a tough one, but on a sunny, nice day, it's fantastic. Despite the 8 miles just to the base of the mountain to then climb. And then another range is called the Seward Range, which is where I'll be guiding on this weekend. They're just, what it is? It's like, they're fine. All the mountains are fine in terms of like the hiking. They just don't have as great of views. And they also get, they get pumped up, right? Like people are like, oh, that's hard. Let me push that off. And then that just, the stories just kind of snowball when in reality, it's like, it's not really much different than the rest of them, but those mountains tend to get pushed off. The Seward Range, the Santanoni Range, and Allen.
Best peak for beginners.
The Lake Placid Niner Mountains, any of them. And it has nothing to do with the challenge. It's just like I picked them for that reason. Like you can build off of one another. So you could do a mountain, my 3-year-old has done my 3-year-old did a couple of them when she was 3 to give you an idea. But like that doesn't mean like it's easy. It's just like it's doable. And then by building up one after another, that's what, you get better. You don't have to always hike high peaks when you're here. That's where obviously like, that's the cool stuff, right? Like the high peaks. But there's just like in the Adirondacks, there are just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mountains with trails, with maintained trails all over the park, right? Like, the Adirondack Park, it's bigger than Yellowstone, Glacier National Park, Smokies, the Everglades, and the Grand Canyons national parks combined. Like that's how big this park is.
What is some of the like you're saying there's so much to do besides just these high peaks. Let's say someone wants to not do a 46er. Like sometimes people will come to Colorado and not want to do a 14er because they're crowded. What are some underrated hikes in the Adirondack Park that do not include a 46er? Yeah,
mountains, specific mountains. I would say Noonmark Mountain, Hurricane Mountain. These are mountains that are like in the high peaks, like in like the region, but they're not high peaks. So like you get in there and then you get the views of the high peaks and the same type of vibe, whereas like it was a much easier hike. So you get the experience and like the vista that we're all humming for without the crazy climb. Mount Van Hovenberg is another one, and there's also a bobsled run on that mountain, one of 8 on planet Earth. Olympic luge and bobsled run. So like that's cool too. That's like a cool experience.
Is that one you can slide down?
I mean, I can't and you can't, but like the athletes do.
Yeah. The peak that you've done the most.
Ooh, good question. The peaks I've done the most would be that, what I just said, Mount Van Hovenberg. I probably run up it once a week, every other week maybe. Mount Joe. Those are all smaller. Those are smaller mountains because I end up doing like
You run up it?
Yeah, well, that trail kind of lends itself well to just like kind of run up it.
Damn.
I don't know how long it is, 2 miles maybe.
Yeah.
I end up doing like these smaller mountains more than like the high peaks because I just want to get in the woods for an hour, 2.5 hours, and then like continue on with my day. Whereas the high peaks, like plan your day around it.
Yeah. So we've had the NPT on our bucket list for a while,
Cool.
but the thing that kind of scared us is everyone told us how wet it was going to be. Looks like we're getting lucky with the forecast.
Yeah.
But what's a typical Adirondack? Like, what's the wet season? How many days of rain does it get out here?
Sure. Well, so we have mud season, it's called. So basically from like April to like June, the messaging from the New York State DEC is like hike lower mountains, let the mountains dry out. Our mud season is pretty much April to June. When I did the Northville-Placid Trail at the beginning of April, like it was winter. Like it was just like we could have used snowshoes, but we didn't have them.
Is that typical?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't expect there to be the amount of snow back there that there was in April, but like, yeah.
And you were getting fresh snow then too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a thing. It was quite the experience. At the time it kind of sucked, but now it's funny. But yeah, it's wet here. Like the joke is like, it's the mud Adirondacks because there's just so much mud here. Because we get, that's why it's so green, right? Like we get so much rain. So it's what you get when you have all, such a green, lush forest and wilderness. So we do get a lot of rain, but the Northville-Placid Trail, part of the reason that it is so wet and it is so, moist and tough is because like I said, you're going to be so far out there to get trail work done back there. It's like, talk about an enormous undertaking because you're just so far back there to get people back there, to get equipment. They have to get lumber to build a bridge. You got to get it helicoptered in. Like, it's just such a thing. Mm-hmm. So some of the trails are hurting back there. You'll see, but yeah, it's wet.
Yeah.
Bring some socks. It's wet back there.
I know there's shelters along the MPT. How are they like Appalachian Trail shelters where they're around 10 miles apart each, or any standard distance, or are they just whoever it felt good to put one? And which ones are the best can't miss ones?
Yeah, there's definitely no rhyme or reason to where they are. They're just there, peppered in. Like, for example, when you get to Spruce Lake, there's 3 within a mile. And then you might be like 12 miles to the next one or 15 miles to the next one. So you kind of plan your days around the lean-to or the campsites. I don't know if you're going to stay in those or you're going to stay in your tent. Obviously, with your tent, you open yourself up to more or different, like a different itinerary. When I was all about the lean-to. So like that's how we planned where we're going based on those in terms of each day. But can't miss ones that were some of my favorites. You'll probably pass it on day 2. The Aluska lean-to, the South Lake lean-to. There's a cool bridge that's just like so picture perfect. When you get to South Lake, you'll be like, oh, this was the bridge he was talking about. This is cool. And there's a bunch of suspension bridges that are super cool. And there's one that's gigantic, which is like, it's like impressive just looking at it, let alone like, man, I can't believe this is back here that they did this. Lean-tos, like they're all kind of on, not all of them, but most of them are on a nice lake. So it's a cool vibe. You're going to wake up to the sounds of loons, and it's just going to be a nice vibe. And the weather you have is just ridiculous right now. It's been like this for like 2 weeks too. This is unheard of. And like this whole week is also nice, which is just crazy.
Is lean-to the preferred word over shelter?
Oh yeah, I didn't even like put 2 and 2 together. Yeah, lean-to is typically what you'll hear people say here.
And on the AT,
same thing though.
Sometimes people will avoid shelters, A, for the crowds. I imagine we won't face that. But B, because there's, a number of them that are pretty popular with the mice crowd and the snake crowd.
Yep.
Is that the same thing here?
You'll have that. Yeah, the mice. That's why a lot of people don't like the lean-tos, the shelters, because of the mice. But yeah, I just like the ease of just not carrying something. The setup and tear down each night is like, we just get up and go. But I also kind of like I don't know, there's something weird about you are out and you're exposed that, like, I don't know, I find it fascinating. You are exposed. Whereas in a tent, yeah, you have a tent up and you're not exposed, but like on the flip side, you are still exposed, just in a different way. You're trapped. So I don't know. I think I prefer the lean-to for a few reasons.
If somebody wanted to come explore the Adirondacks, they had a week and they could spend that week any time of the year, when should they come?
Great question. I say summer, personally. You come in July, you come in August, unbelievable. Now, if you came in the fall, where like in like 2 weeks from now when it's peak foliage, it's going to be amazing out there now, but especially low, where you guys will be at low elevation, so it'll be super awesome. The fall is amazing, but again, like it might not be super sunny in the fall, or it might be. If you get a friggin' perfect fall weather, like ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So I would say summer and fall. But then there's some people, like I know so many people who started hiking in the winter. Like that's when they started, because for some reason they were drawn to climbing mountains in the winter, which seems very strange. And like, why would anyone start this hobby in the winter? But some people do, because the winter creates a totally different experience. If you're a skier, then obviously the winter is the time to come, because Whiteface Mountain, you know, it's had the Olympics on it twice. It's the tallest, or it's the highest vertical on the East Coast. Like it's just like, if that's your thing, the winter. But I like summer personally. Summer at the lakes and the mountains look amazing, and it's just like fun. It's to me, I'm a summer guy.
With the Northville-Placid Trail, is there a weather window that people usually try to be done by?
Be done by? I'm not sure be done by so much, but like the fall ends up being a more popular time, like where you guys are going. I think you are going to run into plenty of people, not a ton, but because of the bugs might not be so brutal right now. And then you get the foliage, and again, that trail lends itself well because it's lower elevation, so the hardwood trees have changed, and it's gonna be pretty awesome.
Can we double click on the bugs? Because I was just assuming there'd be no bugs. And
you are in the Adirondack Park, dude. There's black flies like you would not believe.
All right.
Hope you got a bug net.
I don't.
Nope. Don't.
Quick a quick trip up the hill to
Shit.
quick trip up the hill to EMS will get you set up.
Yeah, we dibs.
Yeah, what? How'd you give it to me?
Yeah, dibs. I'm taking it from you.
Okay.
Hopefully they won't be as bad now. Like I know a lot of people wait till September, October to do the NPT for the bug reason. So my last section, which you hear about on the podcast, was like the beginning of May when I did the NPT. I had a bug net on from the second I left the car to the second I got back in the car 2 days later for the last section, because it was that bad. And I'm talking slept in the bug net, then eating your sandwich in the lean-to like a schmuck, like opening it up, taking a bite, putting the thing back down. Like it was rough. And some sections are worse than others. Like that's a big part of it, but it's just like you're going through lakes, you're going between lakes, right? Like you're skirting in the bottom of the mountains through lakes. So obviously water brings bugs. Some sections were worse than others, but you might also not even notice it.
Yeah.
Who knows? Kind of rolling the dice.
Does bug spray help with the black flies, or is it?
I think bug spray is a scam. I don't think it does anything.
This is our drink element question then. Explain more about bug spray being a scam.
I mean, what is the point of bug spray? It's supposed to keep the bugs away from you, or is it supposed to keep them from biting you? That's a question for you both.
I would both.
Both would be ideal. Yes.
Yeah, I would like everything, please.
I have never. I mean, I maybe you have a sponsor. I do apologize, but.
We can shit on sponsors all the time.
Yeah.
I fucking hate electrolyte. No, I'm just kidding.
I just have found, like, if I'm putting bug spray on, but why are the bugs still all over me nonstop? So I've just never had any. I've never found them to be successful. I think it's a scam, but maybe it's not. That's just my experience. Whereas a bug net's like, all right, you can be on me. I'm not going to notice you. So that's my best option. And it was like, $3.99 at the store.
Yeah. Well, we have to talk to Gossamer Gear, because after we did the Teton Crest Trail and there were just flies everywhere surrounding us on our packs, I had a bunch of people commenting that the color yellow attracts bugs. So that's something that we have to look forward to, and something that we need to complain to Jersey about.
Thanks for letting me know now.
You're welcome.
I had another bug I was just going to comment that I think you like hiking more than I do, because if your day is like you have to eat your sandwich under the bug net, I'm probably just staying at home that day.
Well, no, that's not like always. That was like and that was that day on the NPT I was telling you about. Yeah. But like in general, I mean, you get on top of a summit, sometimes the bugs are brutal, but usually there's like a breeze, right? So it's like the bugs aren't going to be so bad. So it depends, different different days. But in general, the NPT, because again, you're lower elevation, you're usually around water. That's where you're going to get more black flies.
Yeah. Are there specific spots that you're like, man, that spot on trail is always just like a nightmare with bugs?
Yes. Different mountains, there's different mountains around here that's like, I've only spent 2 minutes on the top of it each time because it's just so stupid.
Which ones are those?
A mountain called Catamount Mountain, for one, that comes to mind. And again, like I'm hunting, so if it's warm, sometimes like you sit for a little bit, you're like, dude, I can't sit here. I got to move because it's just so bad. Because you're just like a sitting duck, letting them just swarm you, and I'd rather die. So I go home or I start moving around the woods, that sort of thing. So it's more lower elevation. But yeah, the Adirondacks, like this is like the land of the freaking black flies.
Yeah.
Which sucks,
Good.
but it is what it is.
Yay.
Have fun.
Do you have plans to get out and do peak bagging or backpacking in areas outside of the Adirondacks, or is it? I know with the family life, obviously it tethers you. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, like anyone, like I want to go. I would like to go explore anywhere I can. The thing is, for me, and people ask me this on my podcast all the time, like, when are you going to do episodes like from other places? It's like, I travel 5 hours to go to work, like on movies. Like if I mostly work back in New York City, so like I travel so much for work. I don't want to travel for play because, like, look where I live. I don't have to. So that's why, like, and there's, dude, like I told you how big the Adirondacks is. Like, you have multiple lifetimes worth of adventure to have right here. So because I travel so much for work, like the incentive to do it else for play when I do have this right here is just like not really there. Like, have you guys driven around town and seen?
No.
Okay.
I mean, just we drove here from Albany, but that's the extent of what we've seen.
Yeah. So, I mean, you'll see. You drive around town, you go out to the Adirondack Lodge Road, you just see the mountains. You're like, oh, I get it. Why would he travel? Like, look at all this.
We were all oohing and ahhing about how pretty. I mean, Chance had seen it before, but Elise and I were, I think, definitely taken aback by just how beautiful it is.
You don't expect it in New York State. I don't know where you guys are from originally, but you don't expect it in New York State because why would you?
Yeah.
It's overshadowed by the city.
Well, even like on any certain long trail that I've done, or being in Colorado and hiking a bunch, yes, you could say, why would I go somewhere else? I live here. Look at all this. But when you see the same type of mountains time after time, you can get jaded to it. Do you not get jaded to the views?
I have not gotten bored of the mountains yet. I can tell you, they have not lost their magic on me. There's like a mysterious quality to this park, and there's a mysterious quality to the mountains where, I mean, it's like that anywhere. I feel like anywhere in the outdoors, like there is that kind of just like, what is the deeper meaning here? Like, what is the message that you're trying to tell me? There's something mysterious here. And the Adirondacks in particular, people feel that because, like, you kind of like feel like you come back in time when you enter the blue line. You pass a sign that says now entering Adirondack Park. So for me, I haven't. And like I told you, I grew up here, but this feels like a different, like, once I actually like immersed myself in the outdoor stuff that I can do. And yeah, growing up, like, we would paddle, we would play in the woods, we would climb mountains occasionally, but like, it's different when you truly like become it. So it does feel like a totally brand new place for me in that regard. But yeah, obviously I'd love to go all over the place. I'm going to Vermont in a couple weeks to go hike over there, which is going to be similar, obviously not much different, but, and I've been out West, and I've done a little bit of stuff out there back in my band days. So obviously I want to see as many places as possible, but because of the nonstop traveling that I do for work, the idea of not having to do that for fun is just why it keeps me here. And I also am not bored of it because there's so much to explore. There's so much to find here.
You got a book coming out in March?
My next book is, it's called, what is the title we settled upon now? It's about the 46 high peaks, and it's called the Adirondack 46 in 18 hikes. So basically what I do in that book is I'm giving a plan to like climb the Adirondack 46 in 18 hikes. And then within that, I also then tell my story. Mm-hmm. So like it goes back and forth between, practical information to narrative story. Boom.
It's like a recipe blog.
Yeah, more or less. So that comes out in March. My last book came out last March called Adirondack Campfire Stories. That's just like something that stemmed from my podcast, because on my show I do these like fictional, or are they, dun dun dun, stories I just like made up. I have these campfire stories and I place them in places that people know all over the park, all over the high peaks. So it's kind of fun for that in that regard. But that came out in March, and the next one comes out this next March. So this podcast kind of stemmed this writing thing out of nowhere, really.
These campfire stories, you've made them up? Like they're from
Some
you?
of
They're
them.
not just like urban myth?
Some of them are from my brain. Some of them are stories that people have told. Some of them are actually true. Let you guys figure it out.
Can you give us a fast version of a campfire story? Like tell us the story.
So I have different stories. So I'll take one that's called, it's called the Nye Wolf. And in the book I have the Nye Wolf and the Nye Wolf 2, Nye Wolf Returns. Nye is a mountain in the high peaks. Someone had like made up this story about the Nye Wolf one time. So I heard it, and then I just like expanded the hell out of it and took it. And there's podcast episodes where I tell the story, sound effects, audio, music score, the whole shebang. So basically, like the Nye Wolf, more or less, waits and preys on unprepared hikers for when they did something wrong. They don't have the headlamp. They don't have this. They don't have that. And then like they wait and they pray. So that's like, or it waits and it prays. So like that's one story, or one concept of one story. Then the Cooksacraga, we were talking about the Cooksacraga bog. So there's like a bird creature that is down at the Cooksacraga bog. Once the person steps into the bog, that's kind of what cues the chaos of it all. So it's like basically I take these ideas, these stories, and they're similar to my podcast in the sense of like they're telling a story of a hiker going to hike, and then stuff starts to go wrong, and that's kind of how it ends. And every campfire story, and I say it in the book too, campfire stories need to end on like a dissonant note. It needs to end with you feeling uneasy because it doesn't get resolved. So that's what makes a good campfire story. Is it still out there? Could this happen? This can't be real, but is it? Like, that's kind of how, and in the book, there's some stories are dead ass true and some stories are from my own mind. So I don't tell people which one is which though, but
yeah, that's my next question. Can you tell me which ones are true?
there's some Bigfoot stories in there, which are fun. I love Bigfoot. Huge fan of that subject. I find it fascinating.
Do you think there is Bigfoot is real, Bigfoot isn't real, or as we've learned from a former past guest that there are multiple real Bigfoots?
It's a great question. I feel I first thought Bigfoot was like, yeah, just like a monkey running around in the woods. And then the deeper you go around the rabbit hole, you hear weirder things that are all tie in, and then consistent weirder things. And so now I feel it's like real, but it's also not real. Or it's like flesh and blood, but then it's also more than that, which is why our minds can't comprehend, quite frankly, what is actually happening there. Because too much of like that weird paranormally stuff also go hand in hand with like people's encounters. But then there's hear people seeing it eating, hitting it with their car. That was like a ghost. That wouldn't do it. So it's like, to me, the subject is like, it's all over the map, which is why it's so fascinating and why it's so like, who knows what it is? And if you're out in the woods, can't help but kind of think like, what's lurking behind the tree over there? Yeah. What's watching me? I'll tell you when we get off the podcast, which I have to look it up, but which lean-tos I've heard multiple Bigfoot stories from.
Oh, yeah. Well, tell us on the podcast.
Yeah, I have to think about what the one is called right now.
I can't wait to spook you guys with that.
If you do, I'm not going
to. The O'Neill lean-to is one that I've heard, which you'll pass in like the Long Lake area. The O'Neill lean-to. That's one that I can think of off the top of my head.
I have mace in my hip belt, so if you scare me, you're going to be the one that's...
Guess what? Bigfoot's impervious to mace, so...
I hope so.
Sweet. Well, we'll end with this. This is the Stay Salty question, courtesy of our title sponsor, LMNT. Drink lmnt.com/trek for a free sample pack. I think you might have already achieved this for us, but I want to know, what is your hot take about the outdoors, the Adirondacks, hiking, backpacking? The example that you gave already with bug spray doesn't do anything, it would be a good example.
It's definitely a hot take.
Yeah.
My hot take would be that the line, "the mountains are calling and I must go," is can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
Is bullshit. The mountains don't care about you in the slightest. This idea that they're calling you and you must go, like, I think that approach is nonsense. I feel the mountains, they don't give a shit about you. And that's why if you're not prepared, you're not making it to the summit. If you're not prepared, you might not make it off the mountain. That's on you. The mountains give you this privilege to explore them. And if you kind of shift your perspective and your mindset to like respect them like that, your outdoors adventures become stronger. They become better. But again, like, their mountains are not calling you. They do not give a damn whether you're there, whether you get to the top, whether you don't. It's all on you.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like my hot take that would probably, I'm sure a lot of backpackers listening to this podcast who are wearing the shirt right now are like, oh man, fuck this guy. But the mountains don't care about you.
Yeah. No, well said. Sweet. Well, let people know where they should go. Lots of places to land, obviously, but yeah, please take this opportunity to let Backpacker Radio listeners where they should go.
Sure. You could find me on Instagram at 46of46 podcast or at James Appleton 46. Those are my Instagram pages. My website's 46outdoors.com. That's got all my stuff. But yeah, one of those places you should find me, and then the 46 of 46 podcast on all the podcast players. That's where you'll find me.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks, James. This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've never actually done another podcast here in the town that I live in, so how exciting.
Yeah.
What a pleasure.
To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show, obviously this is huge news, and I'm not going to be able to accurately convey my emotions on the subject, as it is absolutely devastating. But as I'm sure you're well aware by now, Hurricane Helene brought its wrath to the southern Appalachian region, doing extensive damage to many of the trail towns that hikers love, including Hot Springs, Damascus, Irwin, Tennessee, just to name a few. We recently put together an article outlining some of the ways in which people can give back. We did a fundraiser at the Trek where over a 3-day period, we donated 100% of the proceeds to a trio of relief efforts. With your guys' contributions, thank you so much. We were able to raise, I forget the exact amount, it was like $5,600, which was our biggest sales period ever in the history of the store. So again, thank you to everyone who participated there. Very happy to help out that. But yeah, I should have prepared something better. It's honestly still pretty raw seeing all the images and just seeing these towns that anyone who's hiked the AT has come to love. Like, for me, hiking through Hot Springs, North Carolina was one of the most memorable experiences on the entire hike for me. I remember I stayed at Elmer's place. I don't know if that was still around when you hiked in.
I don't remember the name of the place I stayed.
Since I hiked, I know a bunch of other hostels have opened up, but that was a truly outstanding experience for me. The dinner format there is like a requisite group dining experience where they ask the hikers to prepare or to participate in preparing the meal, which I thought was a cool, novel thing. Then you sit down, and Elmer had a bunch of conversation prompts where people go around the table telling a little bit about themselves, and it's just one of those memories from the trail that will live in my heart fondly forever. And yeah, to see the images of literally the town just absolutely being destroyed, like that whole main drag, and it's not very big. It absolutely got leveled by the floods there. It's hard to see and very upsetting. So there are obviously a lot of fundraising and volunteer efforts. And as of the release date of this podcast, I'm sure there'll be a host more. So we'll be doing our best to keep up with that on the Trek. But we'll include the latest resources for how you can get involved in helping via the Trek. So please check out the show notes there. Anything that you want to add to this?
No, it's really sad seeing all the photos. And just seeing, like, I saw one post that was the before and after photos, and it's crazy seeing how much damage it actually did. Yeah. And you just don't expect a hurricane to hit a mountain town. You know, like you think coastal. Right. So it's really sad. Yeah. Especially being in the hiking community, so many people in those areas. Totally. And just like watching them try to get through stuff while your life continues kind of seemingly untouched. It's very hard.
Totally. And I know Asheville obviously isn't considered a trail town, but a lot of people that finish the AT end up in Asheville. We hosted a hiker meetup in Asheville for that reason. And, just obviously being connected to so many people that live in that area, that's one of the towns that has been devastated by this as well. So, our hearts go out to everyone, and please reach out and let us know ways that we can help. I know that we have a large megaphone here through the podcast, and we'll do whatever we can to help. It is devastating. I keep using that word, but I can't think of a better one.
Yeah.
There's another article that I normally would feature, which I like, but given the subject matter that we just were on, I'm going to skip it for now. We'll save it for a future episode. Okay, this is the worst segue of all time. Question of the day. This is you. I'll let you take it.
Which would you rather find in your attic? 1,000 roaches or a person?
Yeah. So obviously noting here that we're not indicating whether this person is dead or alive.
Yeah, because the question, it's typed out saying, which would you rather find living in your attic? But that heavily impacts my answer.
Yeah. I guess you're not going to find a dead person living in your attic, so that's an alive person.
Right. It would be an alive person living in your attic.
1,000 roaches.
Yeah.
There's not a good circumstance where you're finding a person living in your attic.
Right. But that's why I took out the word living, because I would maybe rather find a dead person in my attic than 1,000 roaches if I was a homeowner. If I'm a renter, why do I care? Give me the roaches rather than the person, because then I'd probably want to move out, and moving when you're renting moving anytime sucks. But I would take a dead person if I was the homeowner, and I would take the roaches if I was a renter.
I think I'd take the dead person either way, because if you find 1,000 roaches in the attic, there's probably 10,000 roaches somewhere else in the house.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll have the dead person. What about a live person?
A live person, no.
What if they're kind of nice though?
There's always the possibility that it could go well. It's
well, they won't stay. They're leaving the attic. I'm sorry, you can't stay, but
well, if we're just implementing rules here, I would Sydney Sweeney can be in my attic. I guess that sounds a little creepy considering let me rephrase that. If it was a cool person living in the attic, great. Yeah. Maybe just that's a new Airbnb.
But a living Sydney Sweeney would be who you would prefer.
Would be not a bad option. If you gave me a bunch, that's probably one of the better ones.
I'd have questions.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the authorities would as well.
Yeah.
But if I don't know who the living person is, and I'm just picking a living person versus a dead person all day long.
Right. But Sydney Sweeney, so that's fine.
Sydney and I go way back. She just doesn't know it yet.
My only hesitation with a nice living person, not someone who would be threatening, violent, angry, any of that, is that if I then had to remove the nice living person from my attic, they could become not nice and vengeful, and then they know where I live.
Yes.
So I would feel like if they were a living person, no matter what, I'd need to move.
Sure.
And if they were roaches, I would need to set the house on fire.
Yeah. The roaches would be upsetting, but I feel like that's an easier pest to manage compared to some. Bed bugs are a real motherfucker.
Yeah. Knock on wood, I've never had them.
Yeah. I had them once. It was not good. Myself and my girlfriend kept waking up with little red bumps all over our ankles. It was not nice.
Cool.
So I think this one's mine. We're gonna do the triple crown of commercials.
Yeah, I'll start.
Okay.
Because I know how little you have.
Yeah, I'm working on
I've got some that I have to show you because some of them are too good not to.
I've got some lined up here as well.
And we could just pause.
Yeah.
Where needed. The young homeowners turning into their parents.
Oh yeah. Where they're coaching them on how to not be old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those
are fun.
Every one of those commercials is always great, and you usually wait for commercials to end so your show restarts. I always look forward to when they make a new version of that commercial.
Yeah. Is that Geico?
I don't know.
See, that's where
the problem.
Goes bad. Yeah.
I think it's could be State. No, it's not State Farm. That's Jake. Could be Allstate.
Sure, insurance of some kind.
Because Liberty Mutual is the emu.
How funny is it that we would attribute this to their competitor?
Yeah,
that's a case study in.
I feel like it might be Allstate. I feel like it's blue. Whatever it is blue.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'll Google it.
While you Google it, I'm gonna scroll down. My first one, actually, I'm 99% sure of this.
It's Progressive.
Ah, okay. I'm 99% sure of this. I'll have to fact check it with our guy, but it's the Michael Jordan and Larry Bird playing horse commercial. It starts off the normal way you'd be playing horse is like, they're shooting free throws and dunking and shooting threes. And then it gets progressively more insane as the commercial goes on, where they're like outside of the building, throwing it off the scoreboard, like just impossible things. Obviously, I love this commercial because it's a diehard Bulls fan, love Michael Jordan. But I'm 99% sure this commercial was written by Paulie's dad.
No.
Yeah.
What?
He was like a big dick ad agency guy back in the day. Leo Burnett, I think. And yeah, he's attributed with writing some of like the best commercials of all time, including that one.
Wow, Paulie, that's
Beef,
cool.
what's for dinner? That's his slogan.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Paulie, let me know if I'm misrepresenting anything here.
Yeah.
But I'm almost certain of that.
Yeah, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your next one?
Next one is... I'm going to have to go with... Because my friends and I still do this when we call each other. We'll pick up the phone and go, what's up? The Budweiser commercial, obviously. Classic. I think Budweiser, pound for pound, probably has the best ads of all time.
No.
You don't think so?
No, I've got one.
Okay. Love to hear it.
It's not my next one, but I have it. Oh my God, I'm going to sneeze.
Don't do it.
No, I'm not going
You're going
to.
to ruin the whole podcast. Okay.
Okay. This one is this is the commercial that this is my earliest memory of a commercial that I've thought, I love that commercial.
Mm-hmm.
That like I would quote and like, it was like an inside joke with friends. It came out when I was in middle school. It was Geico. It was one of those like, you save 15% or more with Geico. Pre-Gecko, I think pre-Caveman.
Okay.
This is the soap opera commercial.
Okay.
It's great. I found it on YouTube.
Hey, what is it?
I realize I love you, but as long as you're with Jessica, there can never be anything between us.
Cassie, there's no need to cry. Besides, I've got really great news.
You're leaving Jessica.
No. I just saved a load of money on my car insurance by switching to Geico.
Yeah.
Wait, this is the best part.
I saved. I thought that meant something
to
to you.
That one I love.
Yeah. No. Geico's definitely in the Hall of Fame for creative ads.
I thought that meant something to you.
Yeah. The whole caveman thing, they made a comedy, like a TV series out of it.
Yeah.
I think it lasted for like 4 episodes or whatever, but like never, I'm pretty sure there's no other commercial concept that has spun off into its own sitcom.
My third one, this is what I think are the best ads of all time, commercials, is Sainsbury. This is like a hats off to the British. Sainsbury and other companies, I feel like they're all British in my mind, do these Christmas ads that are like full-scale production commercials that are always so wholesome. Most of them make me cry. And they're just like a really cute, it's like a Disney short, but a story of some sort that's wholesome and uplifting in Christmas.
Yeah.
So the one I chose, that's one of my favorites of them, is the 1914 one.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm thinking of 1984, the Apple commercial.
No. It's not from 1914. It's just the title of it is.
Okay.
It's about 1914. But this is one of the ones that I'm like, oh, this is such a good advert, as they say in the UK. We can pause the recording here and then we zoom in after.
Yeah.
So it's about that ceasefire they had on Christmas Eve during World War I.
Did they actually come together and start singing Christmas hymns?
They had a ceasefire on Christmas.
Yeah, but were they singing?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think like some of this might be embellished.
Yeah. It's longer than I was expecting.
It's 3 minutes and 40
Oh,
seconds.
Jesus.
That's why I said I could pause it, and you said no, don't.
We'll probably pause it.
I meant like Paulie could pause it and resume it. I'm making you watch all 3 minutes.
That's good.
My name is Jim. Mein Name ist Otto. Pleased to meet you, Otto. Freut mich. Rose, she's called.
This is sort of like a reverse Tarantino.
Yeah.
Happy Christmas. Frohe Weihnachten.
He realizes he put the chocolate in his pocket. Ugh, I could cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they do these. They do these every Christmas.
Quite the way to whitewash trench warfare.
Yeah, well, it's based on a true story. I don't know
Yeah.
if all of that happened. The chocolate definitely didn't, but they had one that was like with a cat. They had one with like an old guy that like something with a phone. There were so many. Here, look, there's a whole. I can
Yeah.
send this to you for later.
Sure.
The story behind the 1914 Christmas ad.
Yeah.
But every year.
I'd be curious to know. When I hear ceasefire, it just means like we're taking a day off of shooting, not like hanging out and becoming friends. But maybe I don't know.
I'll send you this link.
A good amount of stuff I don't know. Most stuff, almost all stuff I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of things.
Yeah. That was good. That was like a full motion picture.
Yeah. So back to the podcast.
Back to the podcast. My next one, and I do have an honorable mention. I have two I feel strongly about. I'm going to start with this one. I was going to end with this one. But this is a Call Collect commercial. I won't even say what it is. You'll be able to hear it.
Operator, I'd like to make a collect call, please. First name Bob, last name is not a baby, eats a boy.
Hello?
Collect call for Mr. Bob. We on a baby eats a boy.
Sorry, wrong number.
Who's that, dear?
Bob, they had a baby. It's a boy.
Oh.
Don't need the phone company. Save money the legal way.
Oh, it's another Geico commercial.
Wait, that's really funny.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah. Remember when you had to call collect to get through? I mean, that's
No.
probably before your time. Yeah, that's a generational.
Like if you're on a
difference.
phone booth, maybe.
Yeah. That one I love. I guess it's my last pick. I'll do my first and only honorable mention too. I don't know if this is a Chicago area specific thing. I'd be curious to see if you've seen this one before.
What's that? Do you have insurance on this car? No. It must be Eagle Man.
I've got something for you.
Oh, look at those low rates.
I've never seen that.
Okay, I think that might be a Chicago area thing. I'm not
Wait,
positive.
that's an incredible. That's my favorite of the day.
Yeah. Whoop. I don't know what that is. Yeah, no, it's like you'll never top how corny that is.
That's great. No,
Yeah.
that was really good.
Yeah. Do you have any honorable mentions?
Like one that's airing right now that I enjoy is the Peyton painting one.
Yeah.
That one's really good.
Is that another insurance commercial? I feel like it probably
I think
is.
so.
Yeah.
The insurance commercials do really good.
Yeah, because I guess if you're just trying to sell people insurance, no one's going to pay attention.
Yeah.
It would just be helpful if we knew which one they were doing. The only one I remember is Liberty, 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 liberty.
Yeah, or the emu one.